Welcome to Work in Real Life, the podcast for 20 and 30 somethings muddling their way through their professional life. I'm Marcus Verrell.
And I'm Jenny Winspear. We hear so much from experts that we wanted to give an authentic and lighthearted approach to the workplace. In this episode, we're going to be talking about dating in the workplace. Research says that a quarter to a third, jury's out on exactly which stat that is, of people have had a romantic relationship or encounter in the workplace. So it's probably a topic that's pretty relevant to a lot of people. Now, we want to look at it from a few different perspectives. Firstly, there's some interesting psychological dynamics when you have a relationship in the workplace. Mainly, there's that sense of attraction, emotional connection. Power dynamics are an interesting one with bosses and direct reports. Jealousy, communication, there's all kinds of things that are wrapped up into a workplace relationship, which I'm sure also wrap up into a normal relationship. But also there's the ethics question in the workplace. So are there any kind of legal considerations that need to be thought of? What are the implications for the individuals, teams and organisation? So Marcus, I want to start by asking you, what are your pros and cons for dating in the workplace?
Well, pros and cons of working or dating in the workplace. I think it's a tricky one, the concept of dating in the workplace in general, quite a scary subject. Like you can instantly just think of a lot of things that could go wrong. I mean, in terms of cons, obviously workplace rendezvous that go end sour, probably not conducive to a nice work environment.
No.
I think there's also a degree of in terms of another con, what people might think of it, like as in if like someone higher up the chain is, you know, rendezvousing with someone further down the chain, are people going to be like, well, what if they now get promoted? That's a bit strange. But then I guess there is also some pros to it, like you get to see them a lot. For example, if you work with them, I guess depending on how much you like your partner, that's
probably a
good or a bad thing.
It's interesting you say that actually, because research has shown that there's like a mere exposure effect, where when you're exposed to someone so regularly and consistency, you have more of a tendency to want to be around them, which can actually create more intimate and romantic feelings between two people. So there's something in when you're seeing someone every day, actually psychologically you're starting to feel more and more attracted to them.
Right. Well, that's probably why school was carnage then, wasn't it? I think.
If you went to a mixed school.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think, because harking back to school and the days of school when you were kind of dating people, that was definitely challenging. And I feel like as much as we like to think we're like adults, I think as soon as you're in the workplace, some workplaces can be pretty feral. And you can end up kind of reverting back to kind of like schoolyard scenarios. And I think it hugely depends on the workplace, doesn't it? I think, because I think and like the size of the business as well, because I think if you're at, say, like a massive company with like 150 plus employees, then obviously there's going to be crossover between work and professional life.
And actually research shows that occupations where you have to work really long hours have a much higher percentage of romantic relationships in the workplace. So like law firms and stuff, typically there's lots of couples within them because they have to spend time with each other.
Yeah, well, I suppose they're well positioned if they get married and they need to sort out divorces and stuff. So
very true.
That makes sense.
That's a grim way of looking at it. You're already
We're
thinking about
lawyers,
the divorce.
So it's fine. Yeah. No, I think it's an interesting thing. I can't say that I've experienced it too much. I think off the top of my head, I've probably got like one or two experiences of working or of not myself, but like experiencing people dating in the workplace.
You haven't dated in the workplace?
I haven't dated in the workplace, but we'll leave that there. But I've definitely been in like quite a small team of probably under 30 where there were people, let's say, courting.
Yeah.
The early phases of
Very
dating.
official.
Do you know what I mean? But like, so it was kind of like the beginnings of relationships and stuff like that. And initially it was kind of like kept under wraps because of obvious reasons. And then it became quite apparent that people were dating, and it was like two different sectors of the business, and they were like two people in each department were dating each other.
Yeah.
And it was all fine for a while, like
Till they broke up.
all hunky-dory and whatever. Yeah, and then there was obviously like an incident at a weekend or something where someone did I don't know which party it was.
Someone did something
Okay. That they shouldn't have done. They might have done someone. But they did something they shouldn't have done, basically. And then the whole vibe in the office was like not okay.
Actually, you've reminded me of a story. I did used to work at a law firm, and there was a couple, and I remember someone going down and yelling at her boyfriend. And I used to work in HR, so obviously we always heard all the gossip. And it's just like, it's hard not to bring your personal into the workplace as well, which is probably why there is policies and kind of guidance around it. I'm trying to think, at that workplace, did you have any?
I don't know that we did. There definitely wasn't like an underwritten rule of like you can't date a colleague.
Yeah.
I think it was probably that grey area.
It is a bit of a grey area, isn't it? Because you can't be such a dictatorship that you're gonna stop love from happening. You know? It's gonna happen.
Who wants to be that guy?
You can't stop love.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, you have to kind of have some boundaries, that it's not just getting.
Sure. But I think increasingly, and I know we discussed that we were going to talk about this a little bit, but like increasingly the workplace and like work-life balance, especially after working from home and COVID and things like that, and like extended hours and things like that. And especially when you work in certain industries where, I don't know, you've got to go and travel and you're with people and whatever, like the boundaries that used to exist around kind of work and home don't really exist anymore. Yeah. So I think it makes sense that
the lines are blurring.
Yeah, the lines are blurring. So obviously more people are going to be like meeting partners in the workplace. I don't know if you've got any stats on like whether or not more and more people are meeting in the workplace versus years ago.
I actually did read one, and it was about 6% more was the stat.
Right.
In COVID, 6% more people than previously had been recorded were having romantic interactions, which is really interesting because we're all supposed to be like working from home and stuff. Like, how did that increase?
How did that happen? Just
I can't remember the rest of the study, so
you get Zoom calls.
Yeah.
Zoom call dates.
Really?
Yeah, wow. I think it's probably quite tricky in this day and age with Tinder and all of those like apps and the kind of, I think people are just in general worse at meeting people now than they ever probably have been. Like, it's anxiety inducing thinking about having to meet someone for the first time.
And someone you meet at work is like an easy
in
because you already know them. You don't have to do the dating apps.
Well, exactly. So I can kind of see why it would be a good context to kind of meet someone, because you have a reason to talk to them, and there's kind of like an established boundary where you kind of both know that you can't really cross. And do you know what I mean? So there's like the rules are established. But if you could say tomorrow we woke up and it was like, right, it's now illegal to meet anyone at work. Illegal.
Yeah.
How else would you suggest?
Yeah, I mean the dating apps.
Straight on Tinder, all of them.
That has to be the only way. Well, not the only way.
It's the only way.
Not the only way. The main way that people meet these days. And I remember when dating apps started becoming a thing, and like it was so rare and almost like a bit of an embarrassment to be like, oh, we met on an app.
There is a certain stigma still attached around that, though.
Is that just our generation, though? Because actually I feel like young 20s,
it's probably more normalised.
It's way more normalised.
Well, I mean, I met my current girlfriend, love of my life, on Tinder.
Yeah.
And it was probably the like best thing that's ever really happened to me, because I'm not the type of person that can go up to someone like a random at a bar and be like, hey, how you doing? Can I get you a drink? And just start chatting. Not even at a bar, like anywhere.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll happily talk to people, but the idea of like trying to flirt or kind of be vulnerable enough to be like, oh yeah, I fancy you, do you want to go on a date, petrifies me. So I think Tinder suits that, but I do think you're right, it's probably a generational thing, because it's probably way more normalized now, and I'm all for it. Yeah
I think though that sort of bringing it back to the workplace, how do you ask someone in the workplace that to go on a date? Like, what if you are interested in them? Because there's obviously like sexual harassment, and like you obviously can't harass them. But where's the line for you?
For me, I think asking someone out at work or whatever is because I think it's the same anywhere. It's like knowing where the line is between kind of asking someone out in a non-creepy way, or showing them that you're interested. You've probably got some thoughts or ideas on how you can show someone you're interested, but it's like knowing how to not cross that boundary and showing someone that you're interested without kind of
being too much. And then once you've either got the acknowledgement that, you know, once you've sort of said your piece or whatever, Green
don't
light.
keep, yeah, you know,
Red light.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And then just don't be like a dick. Like
Yeah.
if someone's not interested, clearly,
Yeah.
work or not,
Yeah.
then don't keep pushing it.
No
But
means no.
No means no. But again, even like, and I don't mean in like a sexual sense, no means no in that regard, obviously. But it's difficult when persistence, for example, historically you were kind of told might be a good way to show someone you're interested, because you can kind of consistently and persistently be like, I am interested. But I think it's how you're doing that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That is the key, because
Yeah. And in a work setting, it's like
probably not the best thing
reduced.
to do. Yeah, for sure. Like I think the boundary is way more kind of like harsh in a workplace.
I want to talk a little bit about power dynamics, because that's a complication to the workplace, which is quite different from a normal school setting, a social setting, you know, where you meet, you like each other and you get it on. Yeah, sorry, that was too crass.
Get it on is probably no worse than courting, is it? Let's be honest.
I know. So obviously within a workplace, you have people who are in more senior positions, and actually psychologically you can be attracted to positions of power, so it kind of gives a bit of an unfair advantage, I suppose, to people who are managers compared to people who are subordinates. That's the word, isn't it? That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, that sounds horrible. I don't want to be a subordinate to anyone.
Yeah. So
what does that entail?
Direct report. Is that one better? So yeah, I was wondering what you thought about, or whether you've seen that kind of power dynamic play out, or whether you've felt and experienced, you know, the fact that they're in a position of power and that's kind of attractive.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird one to even think about, because I don't think it's something I've sat there and gone.
It's maybe unconscious as well.
Yeah, I think it's probably a lot of unconscious bias, but I think it works. Take away kind of like romantic attraction.
Yeah.
There's definitely instances where like people in positions of power are more like attractive.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? I'm not talking about cool, I fancy you because you're my boss.
Yeah.
I more mean like you're an aspirational figure to me because you know, you've worked in this job longer and you've got more experience, and I feel like you can be drawn to such figures, and I think that's naturally.
Yeah.
that
And
will
actually,
happen naturally.
in evolutionary terms, someone in a position of power is perceived as having more resources and potentially more viable offspring, which is why people are more likely to partner with them.
Well, I suppose that makes sense,
So
doesn't
that
it? Because we are, yeah, there you go, factoid. But no, well, I guess that makes sense, doesn't it? Because like we are essentially just like Neanderthals.
Yeah.
Are we still Neanderthals? I'm not sure. That's not my area. But yeah, like we are just animals, right? Really. So that completely, like we're all looking for a mate, I guess, and the context that you find yourself kind of dictates what is perceived as attractive.
Yeah.
And I think I really should have got the stats on this, but I know that like there's a psychological thing behind particularly in women, and don't like hate on me for saying this, but I believe it's something yeah, don't quote me, but it's something along the lines of women basically dictate to their friends who they think is attractive,
Right.
to a certain extent.
Okay.
So like, and you probably find yourself doing this with your mates when you're like sussing out a new partner, you'll go and like have a conversation with your mate and be like, or not even like conscious conversation, be like, do you think he's fit? It might more be like you just talk about your new partner or whatever, and guys must do it as well, and I'm sure they do, but I feel like guys don't really talk about it as much because we're just a little bit more basic. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, she's fit, mate, and then that's the initial thing. But women in groups,
That's very generalised.
yeah, well, I think in general, like broadly speaking, I think, and like I said, guys and girls both do it, but I think you kind of, what's perceived as attractive is kind of constructed by the group that you're in to a certain extent. I don't know if you agree. Do you disagree?
I don't know. I find it's an interesting train of thought. I'm not sure. I do.
Well, take celebrities that are deemed as being attractive.
Yeah.
The idea of what is perceived as attractive is kind of trending
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So like 5 years ago,
We've gone down a rabbit hole.
we have, but I think it's
let's go with it.
I think it's a good rabbit hole. But like when you look at what's perceived as being attractive in say the 90s, whether it's guy or girl, there was obviously like a certain groups of looks that were perceived as being attractive.
Is attraction based on looks though?
Not only on looks.
Yeah.
At least I'm told. No, it's not. It's not at all. But even looks or not looks, like certain traits were probably perceived as being more attractive in certain instances, right? So like in the workplace, someone who's probably authoritative might be perceived as more attractive if you're into that. Do you know what I mean? Whereas outside of the workplace, you might not really find it as attractive because you're not really into that.
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the kind of authoritative figure definitely has some roots in it, in terms of people not even knowing that that's what they're attracted to. Actually, funny story, one of my younger brother's friends, his name I won't mention,
you know who you are.
you know who you are. Started sleeping with his manager.
Interesting.
And she was an older woman. She was different level, like he reported into her.
Yeah.
And he loved telling his mates, like, I'm sleeping with my manager.
But this is what I mean. Men are like feral, like that. They're like high-fiving strangers in the street.
Not all men, but this particular one did have that kind of approach.
Yeah.
And it is interesting because the power dynamic adds such a different element to a relationship that it's such a massive complication. I've got some kind of case studies to talk about. I want to kind of dip into like things going on in the actual world, case studies. And I looked up, I literally just Googled CEO having an affair, and the whole first page of Google was about the guy that worked for, what was the name of the company? Boeing, the aircraft industry.
Right. We're not going to get done for libel for talking about this, are we? This is all like been proven.
Oh yeah, it's on Google.
Right.
Yeah. He had an affair. He apologized. He resigned. He actually resigned because of it. It was with a senior executive. And he, it was described as him having a lack of judgment, like he can't rule the company.
Yeah.
He can't lead the company if he's got that kind of moral character and moral compass. So there definitely was a question around ethics. It was described as a scandal, the kiss of death, all this kind of stuff. And actually, all those things you were talking about before, like favoritism potentially, did this person get promoted because they're sleeping their way to the top?
Yeah.
It brings into question someone's expertise and ability to do certain things. So I thought it was quite an interesting case study to look at.
Yeah, because I mean it must just be so tricky, because I don't think in an ideal scenario, in someone in a position like that should not really abuse their position of power. But if both parties are consenting and wanting that to happen, then is it really an abuse of power? Or is it just...
And they were kind of going down there. So he had a wife and kids. This is...
Oh, so it was like an affair.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
And that kind of brings me to like the Matt Hancock situation.
What a guy.
Oh, God. And after he obviously had his very public affair, he didn't resign. He just apologised, and that was that. Am I right? And is that how
I believe? I mean, it was maybe a bit more than that. In that, it obviously became like a big scandal. There was the COVID stuff attached to it. Then there was the whole My Celebrity kind of spin that his PR team managed to do for him. It was like, I mean, it's probably. I think the trouble is that like. Well, first of all, you shouldn't be having an affair. That's kind of like a moral stance. That's a pretty shitty thing to be doing.
Yeah.
But to be also then kind of in the public eye and doing it, I think that's where it gets more complicated.
Yeah.
So if you're in like a position like the Boeing guy or Matt Hancock or whatever, like you're just playing just know better. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially when you're kind of trying to dictate as a politician, kind of dealing with, things that affect people's lives, and your character is being assessed on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
To then be like, right, well, I'm going to go and, romp in the corner with
the words we're coming out today.
With whoever. I don't actually know who the woman it was. Okay, I don't know.
Girlfriend now.
Girlfriend now.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's just this is why it's difficult, because I'm like, love rules all, right?
Know,
like, once if you find that, like, who is an institution to tell you that you can't find the person that you love and want to be with.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like there are certain lines that you've probably shouldn't cross.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
For this next part of the podcast, we're going to do a quick fire round. Marcus has not seen these questions at all, so we're going to get his authentic reaction. But I've devised a list of 5 things which are they borderline? Are they acceptable about dating a colleague in the workplace?
Are these yes/no questions?
Yes, but I'm going to kind of paint the picture, and you can kind of expand on why.
Okay.
I think you should expand on why you think yes.
Otherwise I'm just
or
going to
no.
look dodgy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't just answer yes. No,
Yeah.
Give me your reason. Okay, so number 1, sending a winky face in your chats.
Oh, I do that all the time, but not in like a flirty way. I'm an emoji heavy guy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think that's fine.
Yeah.
But maybe once you've established like a rapport with someone,
Yeah, I
an
get
unsolicited winky face is probably not a good idea.
that. No to the unsolicited winky faces.
Yeah.
Okay, great answer. Okay, second point, drunk texting them.
What, a colleague?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Red flag. Don't do it. Just no. I think a life hack is if you've got like Teams on your phone or laptop or whatever, or mainly on your phone on a night out, just turn that off.
Especially like, okay, so say you fancy someone at work and you're drunk and you're out and you're like, yeah, probably picking up some vibes from them.
Yeah, no, like I think that in this instance, like keep work comms
Yeah.
out of work comms
I'm
out,
with you.
because God knows what you might end up like, even if you just sent it to the wrong chat.
Yeah,
and
God.
if it was more than a winky face.
to your
do you know
manager.
what I mean?
Hey, you out tonight?
Yeah, that's a dangerous.
You up?
That's a dangerous game. If you like playing with fire, go for it. But I would strongly advise against that.
Cool, okay. So complimenting them.
I think compliments are a good thing. I think people should compliment each other more.
Yeah.
I think that's fine. Just don't be a creep and be respectful, and maybe, I mean, come up with a compliment that is like, if you're actually interested in someone. This is my dating advice. If you're actually interested in someone, find a compliment that isn't about just their aesthetic. So compliment a trait of them, or like a value, or like I love how you're so interested in, rather than like, oh, you've got nice eyes or something. It's just creepy.
Okay, for this 4th question, I'm going to set the scene a little bit, right?
Okay.
You've got a bit of banter with a colleague.
Right.
You get on very well. You're attracted to them. Mm-hmm. They don't know you're attracted to them.
Difficult.
But you're picking up some positive vibes.
Good vibes, okay.
Yeah, okay. Is it acceptable to hold prolonged eye contact with a colleague?
Oh, define prolonged though.
Okay,
'cause
so-
I have issues with this in general with eye contact. I find it very weird when people like. I'm all about like eye contact's a good thing, right? But knowing where is too long is.
So this is like a manager says something. You've had a chat with this particular colleague previously, and you've talked about how annoying it is that this manager always does it. The manager does it again. You look at each other. You have that grin.
Well, yeah, I think that's okay, but you definitely don't want to be like a peeping Tom over your like desktop screen, just sort of like, you know, binoculars out, just staring at someone until they give you eye contact.
What about that like intense stare, like after someone says something? You're like,
I think that's fine because you're communicating.
Okay.
That's fine, but just like creepy staring, absolutely not.
Okay, no
Yeah.
to the creepy stare.
Yeah.
Okay, 5th and final question. Is it acceptable to ask a colleague their thoughts on how you look in a photo?
That's probably quite a good testing the waters technique.
Okay.
Because that could be, I'd maybe be like, it depends how you phrase it, right?
Yeah, and depends what's in the photo, right?
yeah, definitely depends what's in the photo. I mean, like, topless Ibiza picture,
Yeah,
probably
not.
too strong. Do you know what I mean? Like a graduation picture. Do you like my suit in this picture? Or I'm thinking of wearing this on Friday. Do you think this looks cool?
Dating advice, though.
Yeah, I think that's fine. But it's just the coming on too strong.
Yeah.
I think is one, just a massive workplace ick. Regardless, man, woman, whatever. I think you just kind of need to be respectful.
Yeah.
And just know where that line is.
Yeah, that's
Do you
a
know
key
what I mean?
thing, isn't
But
it?
I think it's fine to like. Yeah, I think it's fine to ask someone. Do you think this looks cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good conversation opener.
Yeah, but it very much depends on the picture. I must stress that it depends on the picture. Yeah.
Oh, thanks for playing that game with me, Marcus. Did
Yeah,
you enjoy it?
I enjoyed that.
Okay,
That's
good.
quite good. I was very anxious.
It's good to get your authentic reaction.
Yeah.
To finish off this podcast, as we do every week, or are starting to do every week, we're going to refer to our dodgy list of 30 things to do before you're 30. And the one related to this week is, should you have found a long-term partner or gotten married before 30?
I'm gonna go with no. Quite a strong no. I think it'd be great if you can, and I do think that I do think that finding a life partner will probably bring a lot more happiness than someone would initially perceive. But I'm biased because I feel like I've found mine.
Oh, you're too cute.
Get that out of clip, send it to her. But like, I don't think it's essential. Like, and I do think it's, especially in Jersey, actually, I do think it's like quite a forced thing, and I think you have to know before you're doing like jumping into that. Do you know what I mean? But what do you think?
I think I'm on the same kind of no train. I think I'll be on the no train for most of these expectations of 30 before you're 30. Mainly because like you grow so much as a person between 20 to 30. You do at other stages of your life, but the expectation to be married and settled is too much. It's too much of a burden.
It's a bit archaic as well,
yeah,
isn't it?
it is. And like, you know, women have careers now. So they're not just sitting at home having kids and getting married at 20, you know? It's like they're actually doing stuff for them. So to put the pressure on to be settled down and married, I just think is outdated.
Yeah, I think it's probably quite good to have an idea of what you would have liked to achieve if it aligns with your values.
Honestly, I don't know.
But not because someone else has said it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, as soon as someone else is saying, you should, I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I'm not going to do it now because you've told me to.
Oh, is that yours?
Yeah.
I'll remember that.
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Never tell
I
Marcus to do anything.
But like, it's quite good probably to kind of try I mean, if you're the type of person that likes to live their life in kind of like sections, do you know what I mean? So it's like, right, well, in my teenage years, I'm going to be
But then what
carefree.
happens if you don't find someone?
Well, then
and
just-
you've got this expectation, then you just let yourself down?
Yeah, true. Maybe just you're setting yourself up for failure, maybe.
Maybe.
Just
live.
go with the flow, man.
Yeah, just ease it.
This has been the Work in Real Life podcast, and I've been Marcus Verrell.
I'm Jenny Winspear. Please subscribe to our channels below.